8 months into the administration of George Bush, the atmosphere in Congress is anything but kinder and gentler as Mr. Bush had hoped. A conflagration over ethics has resulted in the removal of the Speaker of the House and another top congressional leader. Meanwhile, Congress is working intensely on a piece of legislation of keen interest to the Inland Empire, and that's the reauthorization of the Clean Air Act. We're broadcasting tonight from the office of a member of Congress who is well situated to comment on these and many other matters. He is Representative Jerry Lewis from Redlands. Lewis is the chairman of the House Republican Conference, which makes him the #3 ranking Republican in the House, and he is also the principal author, along with Democrat Henry Waxman of Los Angeles, of legislation to reauthorize the Clean Air Act. I should like to begin, Congressman, by asking about Congress generally. It's now the case that the House of Representatives has a lower turnover rate than the House of Lords in Britain, or indeed the Politburo of the Soviet Union. Moreover, an increasing number of critics charge that Congress has transformed itself from a legislative body into an administrative body, and that it routinely dominates executive branch agencies through micromanagement. Do you agree or disagree with the charge that what we have now is an imperial Congress?
I would suggest that the Politburo comparison is interesting because the election process there is something that my public would wonder about. You know, people serve as long as the party wants them to serve, and a very small clique decides. The fact is that there's a great deal of turnover in the Congress. That's not because incumbents are defeated, but because I think a lot of members get very, very frustrated with the system that is Congress, and they tend to leave pretty early, especially from the minority side. If one has something better to do, why put up with the arbitrariness that is often the way the majority operates within the Congress itself? But having said that, I think there's a significant level of separation of powers that effectively works. That is, the administration proposes a major array of programs and policies and attitudes to the Congress, and traditionally throughout our history, Congress has disposed of that. The judiciary branch speaks for itself. It has plenty of power in the mind's eye of the public, but I also think in reality, indeed, the Congress can be criticized for its attempts to overextend itself across the lines that involve a balance of power. In the foreign policy field, that's especially true. But over the years, there's give and take. I think that frankly, that the balance is pretty good. I wouldn't overly criticize the majority in terms of extending their authority beyond what the Constitution provided.
It is said by some that the most dramatic development in Congress this year was not so much the resignation of Speaker Wright, but rather the election to the #2 position in the Republican leadership of Newt Gingrich, who ostensibly represents a more partisan, confrontational approach to congressional politics. In view of the fact that the Democratic majority in the House seems nearly to be permanent, do you think House Republicans should be more confrontational?
I personally don't fall on the side of confrontation for the sake of confrontation. The House is supposed to be the world's greatest deliberative body. That is, we bring issues that are of interest to the people to the forum, and we have a very healthy debate on several sides of that. That doesn't mean partisan bomb throwing for the sake of it, and I don't fall on that side of the competition between the two parties. I feel very strongly there's a place for real work that involves legislative solution to public problems, and that should be what we do at the committee level and indeed on the floor of the House. I wouldn't suggest, however, that Newt Gingrich is the cause of confrontation. The cause was a very, very arbitrary control exercised by the majority of the House. Speaker Wright, for his strengths and weaknesses, could be faulted most, in my judgment, because he was extremely authoritarian in the way he ran the House, used the rules to extreme to obtain his ends regardless of what it did to the process. And that was as much what led to his demise as anything. Indeed, if a Newt Gingrich and others have resorted to confrontation, it was because they really felt they had no other choice.